Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime about the battle between sorcerers and curses. In this video, I installed a couple of Jujutsu Kaisen mods for Terraria that adds new weapons, accessories, armor, and curse techniques into the game. I've got to say, things got a bit crazy, but before I get to all of that, let's start with the beginning. So, upon entering the world, I noticed two new items in my inventory. There's something called the Wolf Silhouette, which uses cursed energy to summon a pair of divine dogs to fight with me. These dogs are used by Megumi Fushiguro in the anime, and for every boss defeated, their damage increases. They only have 2 damage at the moment, so they're quite weak. Now, on the topic of cursed energy, there's the other item that I have. I started off with 100, and this energy can be used to allow myself to perform cursed techniques. So I summoned my divine dogs, 1 white, 1 black, and oh my god, these things were adorable. I thought their attacks would just be to pounce on enemies, and yes, I was right about that. Well, partly. But they also have their own special ability. They both can spin really fast into a ball and hurl themselves to do a bit of extra damage. I didn't really know what to do, but the best way to start is by chopping down some trees for wood. As I was doing that, my dogs killed a slime, and that slime dropped cursed energy. Yes, I know it has the same name as the one I have in my inventory, but with a different appearance. Now, I'll get to that later in the video, but after I was done collecting wood, I opened up my recipe browser and saw that I could craft the Jujutsu Shrine. It can be used to craft items that contain cursed energy, so it was basically the cornerstone of all cursed energy related items. I had all the materials needed, however, I had to be near a crimson altar to craft it, so I made my way down to the crimson biome and crafted it. Afterwards, I went inside a cave, exploring it, finding life crystals, ores, the web slinger hook, the ice formation which creates ice around me that'll deal damage to enemies. This one was pretty cool and strong as it dealt around 20 to 30 damage upon contact. As I kept exploring, I found a suspicious looking finger. Consuming it permanently increases damage by 1%, but only a maximum of 20 can be consumed. These fingers are from Sukuna, the king of curses, and once all 20 has been consumed, then I would regain full power. I found a couple of these underground, and knowing myself being power hungry, I of course consumed them in a heartbeat. I finished gathering materials, so I teleported back home, placed the Jujutsu Shrine, and saw that I was able to craft Miwa's katana. As this was my first actual weapon, I didn't expect it to have such high damage and critical strike chance. I equipped it, and my god, this thing was huge. I began building a house and also saw an accessory called the Cursed Amulet, which carried untold curses and hidden power. I made it, and placing it into my accessory slot increased the bar above my screen from 200 to 250. This bar is my cursed energy meter, and depending on what weapons I use, it'll drain this bar. I stored some of my items away and drank a gravitation potion to find accessories like the shiny red balloon, lucky horseshoe, and fledgling wings along with another finger. I did some exploring on the left side of the world and found a living wood tree. I went down, opened a chest, and found an unbranded binding vow. I had the option of turning this vow into the speed, damage, defense, or health binding vow, but all came with its own downsides. I had a hard time deciding, so I held off for now. I had a summon and melee weapon, but now I needed a ranged weapon. My eyes were set on the Cursed Bow Tier 1, and just like with Miwa's katana, this also had some high damage. Luckily enough, I collected enough materials last night to craft it, but shooting with this weapon was a bit lacking. A bow called the Cursed Bow, you would expect it to shoot projectiles other than wooden arrows, right? Seeing that I still only had 160 health, I decided to enter the jungle to find some more life crystals and accessories. I stumbled upon my first domain expansion, Horizon of the Captivating Skanda. This uses 4 cursed energy that deals 15 cursed damage and temporarily provides swiftness. I didn't know how to use it at first. I kept clicking and I was hearing noise, but nothing happened. That was until I tried holding down my mouse button and saw my domain expansion deploy. I figured it out a little too late, so I ended up getting killed by a spiked jungle slime. I returned and found a crazy amount of life crystals, enough to achieve max health. Back up at the surface, I began building an arena to face off against the first boss, the Eye of Cthulhu. I used the bow first for the majority of the fight, and ended things with my domain expansion, since it has a wide range of attack, and attacking the boss when in second phase with a bow, I would probably miss a lot of shots. I opened the treasure bag and received the Blazing Courage that had a measly 10 damage but was able to inflict on fire and oiled debuffs, as well as a 1% chance to deal a Black Flash. And I got the Flowing Red skill, which grants 12% curse damage for 2 minutes, but my life regeneration would decrease. I tested out the Blazing Courage and I was able to hit that 1% chance for a Black Flash. This gave me a buff that increased my curse damage by 10% and gave another 1% chance to do a Black Flash. I turned the Crimtane ore into bars and could now craft the head of Kugisaki Nobara. This gave 3 defense and 3% increased curse damage. I paired it up with the Jujutsu uniform, the body and legs, to get the set bonus that enhances Country Girl's hammer, that I didn't even have. But what's special with the uniform is that it's able to improve its stats as I defeat more bosses, just like the wolf silhouette. I then used some cursed energy and a Daybloom seed to craft cursed seeds that summoned Noi. And just like that, I'm back into another boss fight. But this was barely a challenge as the boss was very slow. Upon defeating the boss, it dropped a treasure bag. I opened it up and received Noi's Lucky Feathers that gave 1 defense and increases max health and mana by 20, Noi's Feathers, and Noi's Mask that boosts the effects of the zone state. This would be whenever I deal a Black Flash. With some Noi Feathers, I can craft the head of Fushiguro Megumi, as well as the bird silhouette that slightly increases movement speed and flight time. It also amplifies flight effects for Noi type wings. Once I equipped the head, I got a new set bonus. This bonus summons Noi to fight with me. I also made Noi wings, but comparing it with the fledgling wings, they were a lot worse. Unless I used the bird silhouette, then they were equal to each other. After I was done with all of that, it was time to take on the second boss, the Brain of Cthulhu. So I made my way into the Crimson, built an arena, and then broke some Crimson Hearts to summon the boss. I used Miwa's katana at first, clearing out some of the creepers, but then realized that my domain expansion would be a lot better, especially when the boss reached second phase. I was able to hit anywhere within the domain, so when the boss started cloning itself, it was no problem at all. I defeated the brain again to make sure I had enough materials, and opening the treasure bags, I received the Eye of an Adventurer, granting me the Splunker and Hunter effects permanently as long as I have it equipped. There was also the Piercing Blood Bow that had 39 curse damage, able to do a Black Flash, and imbues my arrows with blood. That's not all. Luckily enough, my summons killed a Demon Eye that dropped painkillers. This gives a significant increase in life regeneration while I'm below 50 health. Now when I used the Piercing Blood Bow, I was expecting some bloody arrows, but they were regular wooden arrows, exactly the same as the Cursed Bow. With some tissue samples, I made the Tiger Silhouette, and this increases the Black Flash chance by 1% for 1 minute, as well as the Deathbringer Pickaxe. I built some NPC houses, and then went back to the Crimson to farm vertebrae. These would be converted into rotten chunk, and then into leather. Once I had enough, I crafted the Cursed Naginata. This weapon was insane when it came to damage, because it had 169 melee damage. Just a reminder that I'm still in pre-hard mode. I used it to farm some more vertebrae to then make the Slaughter Demon, and this weapon was more like the Fatigued Bagnax with its fast attack speed. Not to the point of the Fatigued Bagnax though. And finally, I decided on the Damage Binding Vow that gives 12% increased damage but reduces my max health by 50. So that brought my cursed Naginata to 188 damage. I then made my way to the dungeon, built an arena, and then talked to the old man to summon Skeletron. This fight was quite fast considering I had a weapon that dealt over 200 damage and 400 damage when I landed a critical hit. After Skeletron was defeated, I went inside the dungeon, opened the first gold chest I saw, and found that there was the Dismantle Tier 1 that had 106 magic damage, another finger, and the Muramasa. I also found the Cobalt Shield, Shadow Key, and many more fingers. I killed some monsters and found that they dropped what's called Heavenly Physical. This increases cursed melee and ranged damage by 8%, movement speed by 4%, gives 2 defense, but I won't be able to utilize cursed energy, mana, and minions. There was also this gigantic hammer that dropped from an enemy called Deadly Sentencing that had 68 damage. I started attacking with this thing and man, this looked so funky. It was just out of place in my opinion, so I ended up not using it. I found one more finger, totaling 13, which means my damage has been increased to 13%. Soon after, I got a message saying that a goblin army was approaching, so I teleported back home to take care of them. After defeating the army, I made the head of Zenin Maki. This gave 4 defense and 5% increased curse damage. Pairing Zenin Maki with the uniform, it gave the set bonus that enhances Heavenly Restriction, and basically that doubles the stats of Heavenly Physical. This brought my cursed Naginata to 206 damage. I noticed that I still hadn't gotten myself Hermes boots, so I took the time to explore the underground ice biome, finding flurry boots and another finger. While I was in the ice biome, I farmed some flinks for their fur because it was needed to craft the Soul Split Katana. Now, if you thought the Naginata was insane, this goes beyond that. This thing has 262 melee damage and ignores enemy armor. But guess what? I got annoying on it after spending all that time getting those flinks fur. It's almost time to take on the Wall of Flesh, so I began mining down to hell. Once I made it down, I opened shadow chests, finding more fingers, the treasure magnet, and mined hellstone. I used the hellstone to make myself the molten pickaxe. With the treasure magnet, you guys could not believe what I can make. The cursed technique blue, the one that Gojo could use that sucks in anything in its path. It has a whopping 350 damage and uses up 50 cursed energy per use. Even though I wasn't near the level of Gojo just yet, I had to make it. How could I not? I tested it out in the Crimson and saw that I couldn't spam it. I had to wait until it disappeared before using it again. What was really funny though was that whenever I used it, it played a Gojo voice line. The traveling merchant arrived, so I purchased the DPS meter, and because I defeated the goblin army from earlier, I went underground to search for the goblin tinkerer. I found him, so I purchased rocket boots and the workshop. I combined my accessories together to make spectre boots and reforged my annoying soul splitter katana to deadly. Then, with some hellstone bars, tissue samples, and curse energy, I upgraded the cursed bow tier 1 to tier 2. It added an additional projectile with more damage, but still nothing new with the arrows. It was now time to take on the Wall of Flesh, but on my way there, I killed a demon and it dropped a horn. This horn can be used to craft the Ox silhouette, except I needed 2. I decided to get it later, so I kept going to the edge of the world, collecting the last finger to achieve 20 fingers total. I now stand at the top, granting me 20% increased damage. I finally made it all the way to the right side of the world, so I tossed in the voodoo doll to summon the wall of flesh. I used the dismantle that I got from earlier to start off with, but quickly decided to use my soul split katana. I flew right up to it and started smacking the crap out of it, not really caring about my health because I thought I'd be able to kill it before it killed me, but that wasn't the case. I backed off and used my cursed bow and finally used the cursed technique blue. This tore the parts of the wall of flesh right off of its body, and seeing my health dropping very low, I finished it off. Right when I was about to teleport back home, I killed another demon and it dropped another horn. I now had enough to make the Ox silhouette. It had 61 damage, 2% black flash chance, and damaging enemies with this causes them to become confused. These Oxes were friggin' huge and I was able to somewhat spam the attacks. I then upgraded my cursed amulet into the Amulet of the Fallen. This increased my max energy and boosts the regeneration rate of it. I now have 300 maximum cursed energy. I went to the Crimson to farm more cursed energy because I was going to upgrade it again into something better. While doing so, I found the Cursed Speech. This costs 40 cursed energy to use, and it unleashes a shockwave that immobilizes enemies for 2.5 seconds. But after using it, my throat becomes sore and will become unable to use it for 30 seconds. After gathering enough cursed energy, I crafted the Amulet of the Dead that boosted my max energy even more to 350. I had some Souls of Light which made it possible to craft the one and only Itadori Yuji. This had 7 defense and 8% increased curse damage. The set bonus increases black flash chance by 2%. I know, it's not a lot. I also made the Toad silhouette, and this one was by far the coolest one. It surrounds myself with bubbles that inflict Ichor and Cursed Inferno. These debuffs last for 12 seconds. When I used it, I wasn't expecting this many bubbles to spawn. There was also the Missile Fist I made with a Titan Glove, Cursed Energy, and Souls of Light. This was a weapon that I personally enjoyed using. I went up to a Sky Island, farmed some Wyverns for Souls of Light to use later on to craft the wings. I needed either the Mithril Anvil or Orichalcum Anvil, so I broke some Crimson Altars to spawn in the Hardmode ores. I went underground, mined the ores, made the anvil, and right when I was about to craft the wings, pirates invaded me, so I figured I'd deal with them first. I killed some pirates and eventually one-dropped the Cutlass. After the pirates were defeated, I made Demon Wings that had warding on it, and the Blood Edge. This weapon uses my life instead, and, well, I can't really say much for this weapon. It was just a cutlass covered in blood that dealt more damage. No special effects. There was also an item called Binding Barrier, and when I'm in range of this object, my damage increases by 15%. When I'm out of it, then my damage gets reduced by 15. With 25 vertebrae, 5 life crystals, and some cursed energy, I made the Blood Manipulation Piercing Blood. This technique drained my cursed energy meter extremely fast, so I was only able to use it for a solid 1 to 2 seconds. It finally became night, so I summoned my first mechanical boss to fight. I shot my piercing blood first that chipped a little chunk of health off the boss, and then used a combination of the Missile Fist and Curse Technique Blue to deal massive damage. I also figured the Ox silhouette would be good against this boss, so I used that as well. After defeating the Destroyer, I summoned the Twins next, and I literally spammed the Curse Technique Blue against it. The bosses were just stuck in one place, unable to move. When they got to low health, I finished it off with some fists. And finally, I summoned the last mechanical boss, Skeletron Prime. For this one, I used both the Missile Fist and Toad Silhouette, which did the job nicely. With some hollowed bars, I made Inumaki Toge that had 9 defense and 12% increased curse damage, which gave the set bonus of reduced cooldown to use cursed speech from 30 seconds to a measly 5 seconds. There's also the Twin Eyes that reduce all curse energy usages by 4 and the General Wheel Silhouette that gives 6% damage reduction and 6 armor piercing while I'm nearby. I crafted the pickaxe axe and then made my way into the jungle to find the Plantera bulb, which I did. I found it fairly fast. I found the cloud in a bottle that I used to make the blue horseshoe balloon, and then finished building the arena for Plantera. Then I did some research on how to obtain reverse cursed energy, and all I had to do was kill monsters at night in the Crimson biome. I won't get into too much detail about what this reverse cursed energy can do until later. Before I take on Plantera, I crafted Cleave Tier 1. This is a technique used by Sukuna. The same can be said about Dismantle. For this technique, it doesn't require me to actually aim with my cursor. I can simply just click anywhere on my screen and it'll attack the nearest enemy to me. I made the Shadowforge Crystal Amulet with the reverse curse energy, so in total, I now had 500 max curse energy. I gathered even more reverse curse energy and upgraded the amulet again to the Necro-Mechanical Soul Locket for a total of 650. I was finally ready to take on Plantera, so I went back to the jungle and broke the bulb. Right away during the fight, I noticed that the cleave technique was complete booty cheeks. Like, I had to go extremely close to the boss in order to attack with it. So I had to resort to other weapons and techniques. I shot the Curse Technique Blue at Plantera, and it pulled the boss and flung it right through the right wall, so it took a bit for Plantera to return to the arena. After getting Plantera to second phase, I used the Toad Silhouette for the rest of the fight. Next up is Golem. I used the temple key I got from Plantera to enter the temple. Now I thought defeating Golem would be a breeze, but I was completely wrong. I failed twice, so I knew I had to change something. I ended up upgrading my cursed bow to tier 3, and also crafted the Sanctum and Shadow Quiver. This accessory enables my bow to shoot both holy and unholy arrows, which made all the difference against Golem. After defeating Golem multiple times, I used the Beetle Husks to make the head of Mei Mei. This had 11 defense and 15% increased curse energy. Set bonus enhances Blackbird manipulation, which I didn't have, but I had it equipped anyways. From the treasure bags of Golem, I obtained the Eye of the Golem and the Sunstone, which I used to create the Dawnforged Sun Amulet, which was the last amulet I could make before Moonlord. This gave me a total of 800 max curse energy. I have the curse technique blue, but now it's time to make the red one. This is crafted from an infernal fork in the dungeon, fallen stars, and reverse curse energy. This technique doesn't have as much damage as blue, but instead has an opposite effect. Instead of an attracting effect, it has a repelling effect. This technique was also able to create an explosion to destroy blocks. I went over to the dungeon again to take on the Lunatic cultist and used the cursed technique red against the cultists. This ended up to be a huge mistake because it blew away the circle stone to God knows where, and when I killed the last cultist, the boss despawned instantly. I had to rebuild the platform that the cultist stood on, and then wait for the next night to arrive. When I finally summoned the boss, I used the red technique, and damn, it was bad. And when I say bad, I mean really bad. It was definitely not meant to use against bosses. I resorted to use my cursed bow and the blue technique. After defeating the Lunatic cultist, I went on to kill monsters near the solar pillar for solar fragments. Once I had enough, I used them to create disaster flames. This was hella strong, but it depleted my cursed energy way too fast. I used it regardless of that to destroy the solar pillar. Before I destroyed the rest of the celestial pillars, I wanted to craft the 6 eyes. This was a combination of all other accessories I had already, and some to be made. Firstly, I killed Noe again to get the Eye of Noe. This reduced curse energy usage by 2. I then went to the ocean to kill jellyfish for the Fisher's Eye that grants sonar effect. Next, I killed the Brain of Cthulhu again for the Eye of an Adventurer that I totally forgot I had already. Then I got myself some Nebula fragments to make the Nebulated Eye that increases mana by 60 and reduces mana usage by 15%. Made Panda's Brass Knuckles that increases Black Flash damage, and finally killed the Wall of Flesh again for the Jujutsu emblem that increases curse damage by 15%. Finally, I was able to craft the 6 eyes along with Gojo Satoru. This head gave 13 defense and 18% increased curse damage. Now with the 6 eyes, the effects of all other accessories were amplified by a bit. Cursed energy usage reduced to 1, 12% increased curse damage, reduced mana usage by 20%, and gave 3 defense. As I am now Gojo Satoru, I'm not officially him completely. I needed what's called Limitless. This accessory makes me become invulnerable for 2 seconds every 10 seconds. And because I have the Gojo set bonus, this is reduced to every 4 seconds. I grabbed some crystal shards and was able to craft it. Now for the final accessory, the Jujutsu Kaisen, it consists of even the 6 eyes and Limitless. There are other accessories too that's needed, but some I already had. The ones needed were the Death Swarm, Miracle, and Ratio. I had a black lens, so I made the ratio right away. This increases curse damage by 7%, increases armor penetration by 3, and enhances the wrapped cleaver, which I didn't have. For the miracle, I used the painkiller and some pixie dust to make. This gives an unfathomable increase in life regeneration while below 60 health. And for the death swarm, I killed Arapaima until I got it. This constantly summons a barrage of aquatic creatures that damage enemies. I went on to destroy the Vortex Pillar and Nebula Pillar, but saved the Stardust Pillar until later on. In my eyes, I still wasn't ready to take on Moonlord, so I went back to the dungeon to gather bones and accessories such as a Tabi and Black Belt for the Master Ninja gear. The reason why I gathered bones was to upgrade my cleave to Tier 2, that had 328 damage. I summoned the Solar Eclipse, got the Psycho Knife to upgrade my cleave to Tier 3, that had 547 damage. After all that, I was ready to take on Moonlord, so I destroyed the last pillar and got ready. After defeating Moonlord and opening the treasure bag, I got the domain expansion Unlimited Void. This domain had almost 1000 damage, and using it provided me with nebula buffs. With Luminite bars, I made the final tier for Cleave. This had 1470 damage. I summoned Moonlord again. It got destroyed pretty fast. With another handful of Luminite bars in my inventory, I was able to craft the Hollow Technique Purple. You know, the one that obliterates anything in its path? It had 200 million damage, so the moment this thing touches any monster, they'll die in an instant. I summoned Moonlord once again, but didn't use the purple technique. I tried out the Domain Expansion Unlimited Void first, and this thing covered the entire boss, hitting all 3 parts at the same time. So Moonlord died even faster compared to using the final tier of Cleave. I summoned Moonlord for the last time and used the purple technique, killing a body part instantly, one at a time. This technique also destroys blocks in its path, so I made sure to fight Moonlord away from my house, but there was also the option to craft an alternative that couldn't destroy blocks, which was the anti-purple technique, which I tried out of course. I finished off things by creating the last pendant called the Cosmic Sovereign Pendant, which brought my max curse energy to 2,200. Alright, that's going to be it for the Jujutsu Kaisen mods. Shout out to the creators of this mod, you guys did a wonderful job. If you want to try this out for yourselves, I'll leave all the mods I've used in the description below. There were some techniques that I didn't test out, so if you do play this mod, make sure to try them out. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, comment down below if you have any other mod or video ideas you want me to try out, and of course subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace!